Hi, welcome to African Perspective. My name is Nelda, and I make videos about everything to do with Africa from Mondays to Fridays. Today, despite my beautiful smile, we're going to be talking about actually a very sad topic, and we're going to be looking at suicide in Africa. I came to this topic because I was getting ready for work this morning, and I asked myself, why am I trying to be more consistent with uploading on this channel? And I went back to why I started this channel in the first place. And it was because I wanted to be part of a message of hope to the African continent and to the African people. And then I asked myself, do I have evidence that Africans are actually hopeless and that Africans need hope? So the first thing I decided to look at was the suicide rates in Africa. So, did you know that Africa is the continent that leads in suicide rates globally? I bet you didn't know that. So if you want to find out what I found out today, stick along for the video, like, comment, subscribe, share, do all of that stuff, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you look at the top 10 countries in the world leading by suicide, 6 out of those 10 countries are from Africa. So that is not normal at all because there are 7 continents, and even if you ignore Antarctica because it's snow and penguins, even if you look at just 6 continents in the world, Africa having 6 countries in the top 10 is not something that is normal. The global average for suicide rates is 9 deaths per 100,000 people, but the average in Africa is 11 deaths for every 100,000 people. That is not normal, guys. And that is the average, remember, because there are countries like Lesotho where the average is 87 deaths for every 100,000 people. 87 deaths, which means if you have 100,000 people, 100,000 babies have been born today. 87 of them in Lesotho are probably going to die because of suicide. So we're going to take a look at the top 10 African countries leading in suicide rates. The first one is Lesotho, like I said. The statistics differ depending on the website you look at. Some of them say 72, some of them say 87, but it's between 70 and 90 potentially. Then Eswatini, also known as Swaziland, at 29.4 deaths for every 100,000 people. South Africa at 23.5 deaths for every 100,000 people. Botswana 16.1. Zimbabwe at 14.1, Mozambique at 13.6, Cape Verde at 12.9, Central African Republic at 12.3, Eritrea at 10.9, and Namibia at 9.7. One thing that stood out to me immediately when I looked at these statistics was a lot of these countries are in the southern part of Africa. So these countries are virtually neighbors. So there's South Africa at the very bottom, there's Angola and Namibia, then there's Botswana, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, Swaziland. And to me, I'm just like, is something going on in the southern part of Africa that all these countries grouped together are the ones leading in suicide rates? So if you're from any of those countries or a neighboring country and you know anything about the cultural perceptions of mental health or suicide ideation, please, please, please comment down below and let us know what your opinions are as somebody who's on the ground, because I didn't know that it was this bad. And I know I'm going to share later on about a city in Tanzania which is high in suicide rates, but I didn't know it could get this bad. So these are the leading countries in terms of suicide rates in Africa. And so the concern that I had was, why exactly is this happening? The very first thing that popped up to me was cultural beliefs. It's very obvious that when you're in Africa, mental health is not even part of the conversation. The fact that I'm not even expecting this video to do well, I'm expecting this video will only get 2 views, me and my other account. And that's pretty much it. Because people don't really talk about mental health in Africa. It's like we are scared of talking about the fact that we actually face anxiety, we actually face depression, we actually face like a wide range of mental health disorders as well. And so did you know that 29 million Africans live with depression? And these are just the ones that have been recorded. These are the ones that have been reported. Can you imagine how many, especially African men, can you imagine how many African men are just out there toughing it up, trying to act tough and strong, and they really are struggling deep down. They are scared of being having the economic burden on them. They're terrified of societal expectations. Can you imagine how many African men are out there struggling, and then the only time you'll ever know that they were actually struggling is when they commit suicide? Because for every 3 men that commit suicide in Africa, there's only 1 woman. So clearly men are the ones who are mostly being affected by all the other reasons that are behind suicide in Africa. So that is just one part of the argument. But the other part of the argument is Africa is poor. Duh. Like the first time I saw this, like 70% of global suicides happen in low and middle income countries. So when I saw that, I was like, duh. Like it's not a shock to me. Of course, it's the poor people who are killing themselves. I know that sounds really sharp and rude, but let's just put things on the table as they are. Of course, it's the people from low and middle income countries who are committing suicide because life is tough. Unemployment rates are high, education rates are low, diseases are rampant. Imagine the sense of hopelessness that these people feel. So that led me to look at the inequality rates in Africa. And of course, there is a correlation between the countries that have high suicide rates and the countries that have high income inequality. A country like South Africa, for example. So I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and so I looked at statistics in a very fancy way. There is this thing called a Gini coefficient. Basically, what it measures is the income distribution in the country, and it's then rated between 0 and 1. The closer you are to 0, the more equal people are in a country, and the closer you are to 1, the more unequal a country is. Guess where South Africa is? South Africa is at 0.63%. And so that led me to look deeper into South Africa itself, and I found out that 1% of the top South Africans, the top 1%, own 55% of the wealth in South Africa. If you increase that number to 10%, the top 10% in South Africa own 85% of the total wealth. And in my mind, I was just like, oh my God, that explains it. Imagine you're somebody working really hard, you're waking up every day, you're going to your job, but you're living in a place, there's load shedding, you're not sure if there's going to be electricity or not, the electricity bills are high, the roads are shit, you're trying to just survive, and then you walk outside and you see somebody with 3 Range Rovers, they have 4 houses, they own 3 acres of farmland, and you're like, what have I done wrong? What did I do? Like, who messed up my cards and my stars for me to live a life like this? And imagine you are the man in the family. And of course, with African societies and the way they're structured, also the argument that a lot of people, I can already anticipate the comments. What people are going to be saying is, who set it up like that? It's the men. Sure, sure. But that's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about what already is, not what ought to be. So, can you just imagine the economic burden that this person feels? So, Africa is poor. Africa is suffering from all these things. And I'm like, of course, people are dying. They're dropping dead like flies. And this is really sad because what can we do? And that's just one part of the argument, because it's another part of the argument to do with diseases, particularly HIV/AIDS. So I recorded a video recently about HIV/AIDS, and I will link it in this video as well, so you can go watch it if you want. Highly recommend. I had my natural hair out and I looked really pretty. Anyways, but I did a video about HIV/AIDS, and so when I was looking at the statistics here as well, there's a high correlation between the cities and the countries that are leading in HIV/AIDS and the countries that are leading in suicide rates as well, because people with HIV/AIDS are 35 to 40 times more likely to commit suicide. And again, duh, there's high stigmatization of people living with AIDS. And I don't have AIDS, but I can only imagine going everywhere around a country, any African country really, there is still high stigmatization of people who have AIDS. Sure, some of them got AIDS because of reckless sexual behavior. However, there is also a significant group of them who were born with it because their moms didn't have access to ways to be able to prevent their babies from getting AIDS. So, can we just, again, can we just stop? Because I think the only thing that's left now is just ask people kindly. Can we just stop? AIDS is a sexually transmitted disease. I mean, there is also other ways you can transmit AIDS, but let's just stop stigmatizing people who are living with this disease, because it is a viral disease. It's like flu, but just a little bit complicated. I'm sorry if that's me minimizing it, but stigmatization of AIDS patients is leading to them struggling with their mental health and then leading to suicide. But on the other hand as well, there's also drug and alcohol related suicides. A city like Dar es Salaam, for example. I mean, I'm Tanzanian, so I went to school in Dar es Salaam as well, and three deaths in Dar es Salaam itself. 3 people who end up committing suicide out of 100,000 people. It's alcohol and drug related. I know that was very mushy. I'll try and get the statistic right. But that is also going to show that a lot of people are not alcoholics because, I don't know, alcohol is so sweet. Alcohol tastes disgusting. A lot of people run to alcohol and drugs because they're numbing something. So when you see that there's high rates of alcohol and drug use in a city like Dar es Salaam, and then at the same time, Dar es Salaam is the city that is leading in suicide in Tanzania. Of course, that, like, the statistics make sense, like the data makes sense. It paints a very coherent picture. The continent is struggling, the people are hopeless, and what should be done? What could be done for the people? So I found a few things that could be done, and to be frank, I'm not really impressed. I'm so sorry. I'm not sorry because I'm expecting more. I'm not sorry because there is very little that is being done. The most impressive thing that I found, which is what I'm going to to share because I want to keep this video short, is the Africa Project Against Suicide. I'm just going to be reading from my notes. So this is the largest anti-suicide organization in Africa. It has counseling, it has support, it has prevention programs, and they have branches in 32 different countries. Love, 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 love. So go check it out. I'll put in the description below as well. There is also a helpline. It is South Africa specific, so this is associated to the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, so SADAG or SADAG, depending on how you pronounce it. And there's a helpline. They've helped over 110,000 children in South Africa. So it's a good strategy that we're already going for. And I know Kenya has a lot. They're doing a lot in Kenya as well to talk more about mental health. But with that being said as well, I was looking at mental health support in Africa, and I found out that there's only one psychiatrist for every 500,000 people. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that absolutely crazy? And I was thinking about this and I was like, I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, which I'm going to be rubbing in your face throughout this video, by the way. And I'm not in Tanzania currently. And part of the reason is if I go to Tanzania with my little, it's not little, my degree is big, with my big psychology degree, I'm not going to be able to do anything because there isn't even the opportunity to work around with my degree because mental health, psychology, this concept of us being more than the mind does not really exist as more than the body, excuse me, does not really exist as much. And partly I thought about what's the guy's name? Well, is it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? You start with the basic needs like the food, shelter, and clothes, and you get all the way to like self-realization. And I was like, it makes sense. We're still thinking of where to get our next meal, so of course we don't have time to think about mental health. We're gonna think about bodily health first. We're gonna try to get multiple meals a day first. We're gonna try to get rid of malaria first, and then we're gonna be talking about
all the self. Oh, I feel depressed. I feel anxious. I feel lonely.
So I think something needs to be done. Just let's have more conversations about mental health. And if you're watching this and you're somebody who has experienced suicidal ideation before, you're struggling with suicide thoughts, especially if you're a man, don't. That's the only thing I can say. Don't. You have no idea how precious your life is. Your chances of existing in this world, the chance that you're okay, I was gonna go very crass. I was gonna go a very crass direction, but anyways, chances of you existing are very, very low. No matter how no matter how tough life gets, no matter how discouraging it feels, no matter how African leaders are messing up, no matter what is happening around you, don't give up, just stay alive, it gets better. Okay, so that is the video for today. I hope it was useful. If you have any comments, any questions, any feedback, any inquiry, please feel free to comment down below. I respond very quickly, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll be posting more frequently Mondays to Fridays, and thank you so much for watching.